Hello, and welcome to Hope for Felons podcast, where we discuss felons and everything in between. Your host for this show is Douglas Van Vliet. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Hope for Felons podcast. We're so glad that you tuned in this evening, and we have a special guest on the show. And he will be talking a little bit about the halfway house and also, what to expect when your loved ones come home. So I don't want to waste any time. I want to go ahead and turn it over to you. And so that way you can give them a little bit of insight on a lot of the miscommunication and what really goes on at the halfway house. Go right on ahead.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Yes, all of our listeners, first and foremost, there seems to be quite a bit of misinformation that's giving to the inmates at the prison level before they're released to the halfway houses and or home detention. In my case, personally, I was told on several levels, from counselor to case manager to our release preparation classes, that if you have a verified home address from your probation officer, and if you have a job lined up, that once you are released from the prison, when you arrive at the halfway house, that you will probably be there 1, maybe 2 days at the most, and they will place you on an ankle monitor and send you home. Unfortunately, that is not what is happening, at least the facility that I'm at in South Carolina. There's several hoops you have to jump through to go home to your loved ones. Where you first arrive, you may have to be at the halfway house at a minimum of 7 days before you ever even receive your first pass to be able to go out into the community to shop for hygiene, shop for clothes, etc. You may, depending upon your custody level, not even receive a pass to shop for 30 days from your arrival date. There's also another level that you will receive no passes, period, until you find employment or until you complete certain programming that's in place for you. So I hate to burst everyone's bubble, but if your loved ones are telling you, hey, they've told me once I get to the halfway house, be ready for me because I'm going to be signing in and coming home, that's not always going to be the case. That seems to be the actual exception to the rule. For the home detention process, there again, in my personal experience right now, you have to complete certain pass levels. You start out with your 1 hour pass to go shopping. Then the following week or following month, because if you are not working, you only receive 1 pass a month. If you're working, you receive 1 pass a week. So once you've completed a 1 hour shopping pass successfully, then you will move up to a 2-3 hour social pass where you could go see a movie, spend longer shopping, etc. Once that has been completed, then you move up. I believe the next level is a 6-hour pass. Then you have to complete a 12-hour pass. Then you have to complete 2 52-hour passes. Once you have completed your 2 52-hour passes, at that point, then they will start the paperwork to allow you to go to home detention. Also, even if your probation officer has approved your home dwelling, unfortunately that is not good enough for the halfway house. And your case manager at the halfway house also has to make a home visit prior to you visiting your family. So the quick, easy sign in and sign out, unfortunately, is a myth. I've spoke with the director of my facility, and she concurred. She said that they here are hearing that left and right from residents as they come in, that they're expecting to go because of what they've been told at the prison, only to find out that there are certain criteria that they have to meet that was never told to them from the beginning. So it can be very frustrating. Unfortunately, there's not much that can be done other than to work those steps properly so that the resident can go to their home. It causes a lot of undue stress on the resident of the halfway house. It causes undue stress on the staff at the halfway house because of the miscommunication from the prisons to the halfway. And also, unfortunately, it will cause undue stress on family members because, of course, as a family member, you are as eager to see your loved one as your loved one is to see you. So when all of a sudden, out of the blue, you find out, Johnny's not coming home, Barbara's not coming home, and it may be months before I can see them, it's a pretty big shock. And in my personal situation, I have very little family that's even left out there. And unfortunately, my mother is not in a very good health status. So I kind of feel like it's a race against the clock to be able to get to her, to see her again after a little over 16 years in prison. And it hurts. It hurts a lot, and on both ends. It was almost like I had been resentenced when they told me, I'm sorry, but you can't go home right now, even though your probation officer approved your dwelling. So there's a lot of communication that really needs to be in place between the BOP and the halfway houses. And I would hope that in other states other than South Carolina, that maybe the lines of communication are clearer and others aren't experiencing what myself and several other residents here are going through. But unfortunately, that's where we're at.
Well, you remember, because I actually spoke with you before you was released, and I know you had mentioned to me that I guess new things, new information has come down through the pipe, and maybe the halfway houses had to change the way they was doing things. And because like I had mentioned to you that 3-4 years ago, it was not like that. You could just go on to home confinement, but it may be just that area. It may be different, anywhere, because everybody that listens to the podcast will be going different places, but maybe you might want to also touch into the issues you've had with transportation, because it looks like that the halfway house really don't provide much regarding transportation.
Okay, yes, that's correct. And there again, my experience at my facility, I can't repeat that enough, because from my understanding, each halfway house is different. There seems to even be a difference within the same organizations, but in different cities. You may be at a halfway house that the same company is running multiple facilities, and they may have different rules depending upon what city you are in. Here, they are, from my understanding, are supposed to provide bus vouchers for you for city transportation. It's like pulling teeth to even get a voucher. Half the time I'm hearing from people, I have not used the public transit system myself yet, but I'm hearing from other people that half the time the staff doesn't even know where the vouchers are located. And unfortunately, where I am, the bus route is very limited. For example, I have a meeting that I have to attend this coming week, and it is located almost 20 miles away from the halfway house. When I inquired about getting to my meeting, which is required, I was told, do you have somebody that can pick you up and take you out there? And of course, I don't. I'm not in my home city. And their response was, well, you could probably just take the bus as far as it goes and get a taxi, or just get a taxi from here. We have taxi numbers posted that you can call. So, bottom line, if I did that, I would be having to order a taxi to pick me up, drive me almost 20 miles to the meeting site, which I've been informed is basically in the middle of nowhere. And then I would have to not only pay the fare going to the meeting, I would have to pay the taxi driver to set in the parking lot for my meeting, which will be anywhere between an hour and an hour and a half, roughly, and then pay for that same 20-mile return trip. So in essence, for me to do my required meeting, I'm figuring around $70, $75 of my own money, which unfortunately I have very little of because of being incarcerated for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's really sad. I mean, because, people that's coming out of prison, they have limited resources, limited money, and then you stick them out here and say, well, you know what? You got to find a job. You have to do this. One good thing I have to say is you've really done well, and you was able to get a job fairly quickly. And let me touch.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I can touch on that, so I don't want everything, to come across negative. There are some good points about the facility I'm at. The staff here, even though they can't always provide what you need at the time, they are at least personable with the residents. Our job coordinator is absolutely fantastic. You mentioned that I was already working. He set me up for an interview 6 days after I arrived at the facility, and I went to interview and started working that very next day. So in essence, within 7 days of being here, I was already working. So unfortunately, there hasn't been that much time that I have not even received my first payroll check yet, which would help with the cost of this taxi service. But, you know, at least they are very motivated, and they do have quite a few connections within the city, that makes it, you know, helps facilitate getting a job for people, because they have several companies that they work with regularly that are familiar with the halfway house. They're familiar with, you know, times that you have to have certain meetings and so forth. So they work with the employees. And, you know, that at least helps cut some of the stress levels down of reentering society. So, you know, there are some good things that are happening. It's not all bad. And, it seems, you know, it's the misinformation that's the worst part, I believe.
Well, I would agree with you on that, because I think everybody is told something different. And, you know, when you're going out, you really don't know what to expect, you know, because you're like, should I take halfway house or should I not? And I mean, that is the big question that I get all the time. I mean, because so many people will call and be like, you know, I have my loved one coming home, but they don't know whether or not that I should really take the halfway house. And I'm like, well, I really believe that you should, because, you know, at least it gives you, especially somebody that's coming out and don't have a lot of money, you know, at least they're able to start and make a little bit of money. You're not going to get rich, but at least you would be able to make the money, so when you are released from there, that, you know, you have a head start. And I know that your experience, even with getting, you know, your ID, I don't know too much about, you know, the hoops you have to go through for there, but I know that back years ago, they had, where I was, they had an organization that would actually pay for, it's the same people that actually pay for homeless people to get their ID, so that way everybody has an ID. And so they would send us there, and they would give us a free voucher so we could go, you know, to the DMV and, you know, get just a regular state issue ID, no driver's license, but they would pay for an ID.
Oh, wow. See, now, so far, nothing like that has been mentioned to me. I did inquire about a state ID, and the response was, when you were able to get a pass, we can give you a pass to go to the DMV to get an ID. There again, no transportation or anything provided. It's something that I would have to take care of. And unfortunately, the DMV office is on the other side of the city that I'm in. I believe that the bus route does go close-ish to the DMV office, but the end of the route, I want to say, is maybe a mile and a half from where the DMV is. I may be incorrect on the distance, but you're still going to be walking it once, you get to the end of the bus route. So.
Well, I'll tell you, that's tough. I mean, 'cause it looks like, depending on where you go, it does have a lot to do with it. But I believe what you're saying is correct, maybe for a lot of the halfway houses now, as far as they have a structure to where you have to follow, before you can get the home confinement.
Right.
I'm not sure. I was going to try to find out some more information about the halfway house in Greensboro to see what they do now, because things might have changed,
Right, and it seems to, from my understanding, with the First Step Act being implemented, that so many inmates were released to halfway house, to home confinement, straight to probation, that the probation officers, the halfway houses, had no rules in place to handle that large of an influx of people. So their solution was to just tighten the reins on everyone until they could find something that works for them, where they have all of the persons on their caseloads covered. So hopefully, some of these obstacles will go away with time once they can implement a system to handle everyone. I don't know, with the COVID situation, if that's had any type of bearing, on anything or not. It seems to have impacted everything in the world, so chances are it probably has some little thing to do. But, I'm really hoping that the next person that arrives here could call in and have a better story, that maybe whatever prison they were at, they're like, look, we're going to give it to you real. Once you leave here, you're going to the halfway house. The halfway house themselves will determine when you will go to home detention. I would really hope that that person, has an educated staff member on the prison level so that they don't have the expectations that I did. Because you mentioned people calling into you or, contacting you via email inquiring about should I take halfway house or not. I was one of those people. I had always said with the time that I was doing in the prison that a couple of months of halfway house was not going to make a difference, that I would just go ahead, max out, and then come home. Well, when I was offered 6 months of halfway house, I still was unsure. Of course, then I'm being told, that 6 months really means nothing because you're only going to be there for a couple of days. You have your home. It's already been approved. So you should really do it. If I had been given the correct information, my decision might have been different. I may have still decided to go ahead and stay at the prison. I was motivated by being able to get home to see my mother. Well, now I am in the same state as her, but in essence, I might as well still be behind that fence at the prison because I still cannot go see her. So, that's a personal choice that everyone has to make. Just make sure that you have all the information you possibly can. Even if you have your loved ones call and pester the halfway house at the beginning to find out what their procedures are, their basic procedures for their loved one to come to home detention. because that way they at least would have a little better grasp on the time frame.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you did take it. I mean, I was glad that we have been able to be a help to you and get a lot of the things that you need.
Yes.
Hope for Felons, that's what we do, is we try to help as many people as we can reintegrate into society, because we know that it can be challenging. It can be, hard on not only the person being released, but the family.
Yeah, and I can honestly say, with the support and advice from Hope for Felons, that did have an impact on my decision whether or not to accept Halfway House. And even though, there again, I was told incorrectly, I am still glad that I did follow that advice and that I am here at the Halfway House, because opportunities have, come open. My job being first and foremost, because I feared I was virtually unemployable after so many years of being locked up, and the advancements of technology and so forth, that I thought I was coming into basically an alien world that I would not understand any longer. And the Halfway House at least provides you that stepping stone to slowly get back into it. You mentioned to me, which stuck in my brain, that when you first got out, that walking by traffic was a little issue, because you had not been walking around traffic for so long.
Oh yeah.
And having to remember lessons from childhood. Look both ways before crossing the street. When I first got out, and when I was at the bus station, when it had a layover, that was the first time that I was really around traffic patterns. And it was interesting. It was very interesting to be around that amount of vehicles again, and being around people just going here and there, and seeing everyone on their cell phones, just looking down, not really talking to anyone anymore. And it was an eye-opener. But, with some of the advice that you've given me, over the months prior to my release, and kind of given me a heads up, of how things kind of work now, it provided a little bit of a map to help me navigate those, first few days out, and kind of go, okay, if you see a car, coming down the road, yes, it may, be a little scary right at first, but it's not going to jump the curb. It's not going to run over you.
Well,
you stay on the side.
So
you
much
stay
different.
on the.
It's so much different than walking down the concrete sidewalk and somebody bumping into you. It's
right.
It's so much different, because you have all these cars, and here I had to go to work, and I think I went to work just a few days after, not too long after I got at the Halfway House, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then, with my father passing away, I had to take the Greyhound all the way, about I would say probably about 65, 70 miles. And then, not having to deal with people that you don't really know. You don't know if they're going to rob you. You don't know what in the world is going on. So it is a little bit scary, because
it really
you have no idea.
Yeah, one would never think that it would be scarier walking down a city sidewalk than being inside of a prison. But in some ways, it actually is, because in prison, everything is so structured. And, you have to be here at this time. You have to perform this task at this time. You have to eat at this time. When you are out on your own, now all of a sudden you are responsible for managing that time, getting yourself to work. And another thing, to circle back to the job coordinator here at my facility, that was one of my concerns with working, was that I needed something that would be close by, that I could walk to until I could branch out further once I am able to learn the city, able to afford transportation. And that was one of the things that he took into consideration when he was looking for available jobs in the area. And right off the bat, he sent me to the exact right place. So.
Well, I'm really glad that you wasn't stuck with the chickens.
Yeah, I did not want to be pulling guts out of chickens.
But I tell you, really, when I was at the halfway house, it was an enjoyable time for me. But I always say that I'm so glad that I did take the halfway house, because if I didn't take the halfway house, with my dad passing away, I would have never been able to go to the funeral.
Right. Right. And the reality is, as I mentioned earlier, the health situation with my mother and her advanced age, that factored into my decision as well, because God forbid if something would have happened to her in the time frame that I could have been at the halfway house and could have done something, but I had chosen not to go and stayed at the prison and could do nothing, I would have never forgiven myself.
Very true. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. But I'm really glad that you took the halfway house, and like you said, I think that everybody has to make, because that's really a personal choice that you have to make. You have to weigh out all your options, and like you said, it's better to see what halfway house you're going to, and, try to get as much information as you possibly can,
right.
Because if you don't want to stay there, then, that could be a big hang up, because, we all know, being there for so long, like we was, you got comfortable. You know what you're going to do every day. You don't have to worry about nothing. But, but I always tell everybody that every circumstance is different. And especially if you don't have any money, if you're leaving with no money, at least it will give you a chance to be able to bank some money, so that way once you are released, that it won't be so hard on you.
Exactly.
Because not everybody has a place to go to when they're released. So many people is left out on the street. They don't have no family, or their family has forsaken them, and, because they had gotten in trouble, so they're like, okay, I'm stuck out here all alone. Now, one thing, I get a call all the time. I get these calls, and it's like, they're having issues because they're a felon, and even though they've been out for 5 years, they can't get nobody to rent to them. And I mean, there is so much, out here. And I think really by taking the halfway house actually gives a person a place to stay, a roof over their head, and a chance to get a job and to make money, so they can try to find, housing and a place to stay once they're released.
Right. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give anyone's family members out there, if your loved one has recently been incarcerated, please advise them to save their money that they make in the prison. It may not seem like much over the years, depending upon length of sentence, it can add up. And having that little bit of financial security is a lot better than buying that little Debbie Swiss roll box at the commissary, or that bag of Doritos at the commissary, or the pizza making materials. Now, of course, obviously they'll want to do that every once in a while, but you really do not need a full locker at a prison to be able to survive. You need the money for when you get out, because eventually, in most cases, everyone will be getting out. And the better financial protection you have, the easier that transition is going to be.
Exactly. I do agree with you on that. Now, in your point of view, if a person has 15 years that they're doing in prison, if they're doing a long sentence, when should they start saving?
On day one. When you get in there, if you have money on your books from the county jail that's transferred to your prison account, leave it on your prison account. Because from that day one, it can make a difference. I know it sounds cliche, but it really can. And I wish, and I'm speaking from hindsight instead of foresight, I wish I would have done that from day one, because it would have made my life a lot easier coming out. Unfortunately, I was counting on an inheritance that I had received, so I was not concerned with the money I was making at the prison. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat good, I'm going to be comfortable while I'm here. And unfortunately, the inheritance that I had in my case had to be turned over for medical care for my mother. So you can't always count on what money is out on the street. I can attest to that personally. So as the old saying says, prepare for a rainy day, because my rainy day was a complete downpour. And if it was not for Hope for Felons, I would not even be in quote unquote as good of a situation as I am right now. Because with their help and the help of a couple of friends that I had, I was able to at least have a little bit of hygiene, a few items of clothing to be able to get started. A lot of people, they forget about clothing, because in the prison, you're provided with a uniform. You have a pair of shorts or a pair of t-shirts that you can purchase on the commissary. Okay, in the working world, you may not be able to wear that gray t-shirt and those yellow mesh shorts to work. You have to have other type of clothing. You have to have different types of shoes. And those are some things that people, myself included, really didn't think about over the years of incarceration. That, hey, this basic casual attire, that's not going to work for me when I get out. Yes, it will clothe my body, but I'm not going to be able to go to work like that. So, please counsel.
One of the things mentioned about the sizes, because there's so much different in the sizes.
Right.
We found that out, didn't we?
Yes, quite a huge difference. It was almost as though I immediately went on Weight Watchers from the prison to here because my clothing size from prison was probably 4 sizes larger than what street clothing measurements are.
I know. I was really surprised because when you told me what to get, I was like, okay, I'll get that. And then you said, you know what? You probably need to get something smaller than that. But then you found out you really needed something smaller than that.
Yeah, even smaller than that.
Well, I'm really glad to have you on the show today, and we'll have to have you on again because I think it's really needed so that way the community will understand because they don't really understand, and there's very few people that is willing to get on a podcast and share their experience, which that helps everybody.
Exactly.
I mean, it don't, and I think that's what we're here for is to help, because there's not that much out here, to help and explain to people, okay, this is how it really is.
Right.
And we don't cut no corners. We just tell, okay, this is how it is. So if you don't want to be in this situation, then you probably don't need to take the halfway house.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing. I'm glad you kind of mentioned that is let your loved ones know, keep a level head. Do not keep that prison mentality when you get out, because when you're at the halfway house, you still have rules that some coincide with prison rules. Some also are more strict because you're now out into the community. So throw away that prison attitude of, oh yeah, I don't care. I'm locked up. They can't do much more to me. Blah, blah, blah. Trust me, they can. They can give you that taste of freedom and give you enough rope to hang yourself to where you're at the halfway house 24 hours and all of a sudden you're sitting in county jail waiting for the marshals to come put you back behind the wall. Matter of fact, the day that I arrived at my facility, they had just 2 hours prior to my arrival had the county sheriff's office here to kindly escort a resident to the county jail that was going back to prison because he thought he knew everything and he didn't care about having a job. He didn't care about this, didn't care about that. And with that decision, lost his freedom all over again.
Yeah, that's really sad because I had run into the same thing years ago when I told you about the guy that come in drunk.
Right.
And, they're not going to stand for it. But the place where I was at was trying to help him and, was going to give him another chance. But then the next day he came in worse than he did the first time. And I was like, hey, dude, and now, he had to go right back to prison. Right. And then, serve his time and then, get back out. But of course he didn't get no more halfway house. They wasn't going to take him back.
Yeah,
not after that.
Yep. So there's all that additional time now that those individuals have lost with their families again.
Exactly.
So.
Because that's what's really important is to be able to have that communication with their family members and try to get home as soon as they can. I mean, like you said, it may take them a little bit longer at some halfway houses. They may have to stay the whole time, but at least they're not behind the fence. They can have a phone. you
Right.
know, and you love the phone.
Oh, I love the phone because that's at least a lot quicker way of communication with my mother, opposed to a little 10 or 15-minute call on the prison phone that's still being interrupted with the recording that this call is coming from a federal institution. Now I can dial the number, she can pick it up, and we can immediately start talking and talk for however long we want to.
Now, I did want you to talk a little bit about, since you have came out and you experience, as far as phone and data, because the halfway houses don't allow Wi-Fi.
Correct.
So, I think that it might be a good idea maybe to talk about, your experience with data. And I know it's new to you still, but, I think that the people really need to know. I mean, I suggest that if a family member can, afford it, that it wouldn't be bad to have unlimited, but, I'll let you talk about that.
Okay. Right. When I got out, I had not ever even experienced a smartphone in person. When I was arrested, I had a flip phone. That's what was out there at the time. The iPhones came out, I believe, the year after my incarceration. So my experience of smartphones were what I saw on television, what I saw in magazine ads, in movies. It's like a new toy. And you're going to want to bounce around on the internet, search, for various things, watch movies online, watch television shows, play some online games, etc., which can eat up your data rather quickly. So be mindful of that. Let your loved one know, if you've provided a phone for them that has 5 gigs of data and unlimited talk and text, please let them know that 5 gigs can go really quick if you're sitting there watching movies, watching videos, and so forth. And then your phone is going to move really, really slow until the time to renew your service, as I am experiencing at this time, because I did not manage my data properly. Because there again, it was something brand new, and I'm like, oh wow, I have all of this information at my fingertips, and unfortunately, all that information does come at a gigabyte cost. So they are very wonderful tools, but as with anything, try to use it in moderation so that you can have that high-speed connection throughout your monthly contract or monthly service plan if it's not a contract situation that has unlimited. I have the Walmart Family Mobile, which Hope for Felons assisted me with, because I had no clue of what services were there. What would be a good service, what would be a bad service. They are a very good service. There's no contracts with them. You can actually purchase a phone and a service plan at the same time. Your loved one, when they have passes, they can go right to their local Walmart to re-up on their service. It can be paid online by them, by you, however the individual wants to handle it. And they also have different plans and so forth that are available. But if you can afford a plan with unlimited talk, text, and data, it would be a very big help for your loved one, because I'm sure even if someone's locked up a year, there's a lot of things they're going to want to do once they get out, even if it's searching job sites, something that simple, which could lead, of course, to future employment, but it can also eat up your data charge. And sometimes people don't think about that. If you're just bopping around on Google, that you're actually out on the internet and therefore accruing data usage.
Yeah, and too, it'd be pretty tough probably to fill out an application on the phone, but I have seen a lot of people at the halfway house do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that, it's really a must to have as much data as possible, so that way, because there's hardly no TVs in none of the halfway houses. So, right. You do want to be able to have your loved one be comfortable and be able mm-hmm. to watch movies and stuff at night.
Correct.
And I believe that Walmart Family Mobile, I have always thought that it was really good for somebody coming out of prison, because mm-hmm. anybody can actually send you, the service card.
Right.
Go to Walmart, get it, and send it to you, because all they have to do, mm-hmm. if they actually do it online, a lot of times it'll send them like the long number, and then all they have to do is put it in. So it's
right.
really nice.
Matter of fact, today my plan was about to expire in a few days, so I went ahead while I had the funds, because the phone is your life connection. That definitely has to be a priority, to keep your service going, because you need it for your job. You have to call your halfway house when you arrive at work. You have to call your halfway house sometimes when you're going on break. You have to call your halfway house when you're coming back from break. You have to call your halfway house when you're leaving work. So if you have that phone in your pocket, you can take care of that immediately, so that there's no doubts of where you are. And so I went ahead and re-upped for my plan to renew at the beginning of the month. And I was able to do it right off of the phone, and they sent me a quote-unquote digital item, which was the plan card that I purchased. And once you add it to your cart, they sent the confirmation to my email that the order had been received, processed, and the funds applied for my phone. So I went in maybe about 20 minutes later to check my account, and it's already showing my new renewal date of June 1st opposed to May 1st. So it's really, good. Yeah, it's really convenient. And I know you and I both are sitting here sounding like Walmart spokespeople, which we are not. we unfortunately are not being paid for this advertisement.
No.
But, I fully agree with you. I never even knew that Walmart had a, service like that. And people can call me a snob, whatever. My initial thought when I heard Walmart Family Plan, I'm like, oh, that service is probably going to be terrible. That it's going to be sketchy. But I have had absolutely no issues with it. And the dorm that I'm in at my halfway house is an interior dorm, meaning that it's in the middle, basically the middle of the house, and there are no windows or anything, but I get perfect coverage. It doesn't even blink, So they're definitely a good service to have, even if you keep it while you're at the halfway house. And then when you get out, go to another provider. It's very cost effective for while you're here.
Exactly. And one thing is, because I've had it ever since I've been out, because Mom, she swears by it, because it's really inexpensive for what people pay out here on the contract. I mean, because these people pay, like $80-$90 they pay for a contract when we're getting the same thing for less. And to let the people know, Walmart Family Mobile, they actually run on T-Mobile towers, which T-Mobile is everywhere, and they work very, very well, as to opposed to some of their competitors now. They don't work that good in our area, And Mom, she has been using them. I think she says she's going on like her 10th year or something using Walmart Family Mobile.
Okay.
And
I didn't even realize they had it out that long, but
yeah, so she's like, she would not go anywhere else because, of the cost effective. And I do want to say, like, if somebody is out there and especially if you are on disability or you get food stamps and you do have an EBT card, that you can actually apply for the Lifeline through Walmart and get $10 off, which that's a very big chunk there when you think about it. If you get like you have a $39 plan, well, you cut $10 off of it, then you're not really paying hardly nothing at all.
Right, yeah, in comparison to some things, that's true.
Yeah.
That's very
true.
Well,
I'm going to go ahead and we'll wrap this up for this week, and hopefully everybody has enjoyed. I know I have.
I have as well, and I thank you for the opportunity to be on the show, and I hope I've helped, some people out there, and have given, with my experiences, maybe open some eyes and maybe help, someone not having to go through the amount of stress level that I did. Maybe, being a little more prepared that it'll be a little easier for someone else's loved one coming out.
Well, I definitely agree with you. I believe that if the people would listen to, our podcast, because you have given us a lot of information, and even if you have to, listen to it again, because our podcast is online at www.hopeforfelons.com, but we're also on our website. We do stream it live on our radio show. We have all kinds of stuff. We're fixing to branch out. We're going to be on Apple Podcasts. We've got a lot of different things that's coming down the pipe. And I'm so thankful that, we're actually able to expand. We do everything just by ourselves. We don't ask for no donations. We don't ask for nothing. We just try to help as many people as we can when the funds are available. So if your loved one is about ready to get out, then please send us an email at info@hopeforfelons.com, or you can simply call us at any time at area code 336-517-7861, and we will do our best to try to help you, because we know and understand that the transition can be tough. And that's one of the reasons that we had a special show today so that way we can explain to the loved ones what's really going on at the halfway house. And I know that everybody, this is a need that should have been addressed a long time ago, but thankfully that we was able to have somebody come on here and explain it to us. So until next time, this is Doug, and there's hope for a felon.